Think ancient Greece was just cool philosophers and epic Olympics? Think again. Classical building behind those famous marble statues, there were some seriously strict social rules that decided everything, especially who had power. Ready for a hidden side of history? Hit subscribe if you love uncovering the past, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. It seriously helps us out. Now let's dive in. First of all, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel. The power game, not what you think. Forget modern labels. The ancient Greeks saw relationships through a totally different lens, one laser-focused on power and status. Your place in society wasn't just about your family or job. It was shockingly linked to your perceived role in relationships. Being seen as the dominant partner? That was your VIP ticket to respect, citizenship, and political power in places like Athens. Flex biceps. But here's the wild historical twist. For adult men, being perceived as the passive partner wasn't just awkward. It was social suicide. Face screaming in fear, we're talking instant loss of rights, reputation, and any shot at a public career. This wasn't just gossip. It shaped laws and decided who got a vote, own land, or even speak in the assembly. Imagine losing your entire social media following and your right to vote overnight because of public perception. That was the brutal reality for some. Ever heard of the Athenian politician Aeschines? He famously attacked his rival Timarchus by accusing him of losing his citizen rights specifically because of his alleged past relationships as a youth. It became a huge scandal, proving how deeply this power hierarchy was woven into the fabric of Greek politics. How could a society invent democracy yet have such harsh social rules? That's the real Greek paradox we're exploring next. Balance scale. The price of power. A twisted social ladder. Forget modern ideas of mentorship. In elite Greek circles, climbing the social ladder came with some seriously. Think ancient Greece was just cool philosophers and epic Olympics? Think again. Classical building behind those famous marble statues, there were some seriously strict social rules that decided everything, especially who had power. Ready for a hidden side of history? Hit subscribe if you love uncovering the past, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. It seriously helps us out. Now let's dive in. First of all, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel. The power game, not what you think. Forget modern labels. The ancient Greeks saw relationships through a totally different lens, one laser-focused on power and status. Your place in society wasn't just about your family or job. It was shockingly linked to your perceived role in relationships. Being seen as the dominant partner? That was your VIP ticket to respect, citizenship, and political power in places like Athens. Flex biceps. But here's the wild historical twist. For adult men, being perceived as the passive partner wasn't just awkward. It was social suicide. Face screaming in fear, we're talking instant loss of rights, reputation, and any shot at a public career. This wasn't just gossip. It shaped laws and decided who got a vote, own land, or even speak in the assembly. Imagine losing your entire social media following and your right to vote overnight because of public perception. That was the brutal reality for some. Ever heard of the Athenian politician Aeschines? He famously attacked his rival Timarchus by accusing him of losing his citizen rights specifically because of his alleged past relationships as a youth. It became a huge scandal, proving how deeply this power hierarchy was woven into the fabric of Greek politics. How could a society invent democracy yet have such harsh social rules? That's the real Greek paradox we're exploring next. Balance scale. The price of power. A twisted social ladder. Forget modern ideas of mentorship. In elite Greek circles, climbing the social ladder came with some seriously. This is the path to power. It was visual propaganda, shaping what society saw as normal and desirable. The age rulebook, it wasn't about protection. These bonds had strict expiry dates, usually starting around a boy's early teens and ending when he grew facial hair, late teens/early 20s. But here's the shocker. This timing wasn't about safeguarding the young. It was purely about maintaining the older man's social status. Once the youth looked like an adult man himself, continuing the bond would blur the lines of power and threaten the elder's perceived dominance. Status was everything. While Athens gets the spotlight, Sparta had its own brutal version. Young Spartans endured famously harsh military training, the agoge, but they also faced intense social pressure to form bonds with older warrior mentors. Refusing wasn't just career suicide. It could brand you as weak in a society obsessed with military strength. Flexed biceps, how could two such different city-states share such similar pressures? That's the power of cultural norms. The twisted classroom, when education crossed lines. So, was this really about learning? Thinking Face elite Greeks claimed these bonds were mentorship programs, teaching politics, philosophy, and manners. But dig deeper, and the reality gets uncomfortable. The personal closeness demanded wasn't just extra, it was seen as the fuel for the learning itself. They argued deep emotional bonds, forged through intense personal connection, made lessons stick. Think of it like a teacher insisting you must be their best friend to understand math, but cranked up to an extreme level. Here's the historical clash. Even famous philosophers were divided. Plato, later in life, argued fiercely against this system, saying true knowledge shouldn't need those kinds of bonds. Light bulb, but scrolls, legal texts, and even medical writings from the time show these relationships had very strict physical rules. It's a dark reminder that powerful societies can wrap harmful practices in noble words like tradition or education, asterisk, asterisk. Sparta, loyalty forged in a pressure cooker. Now, take this pressure cooker environment to Sparta, and it gets even more intense. Their legendary military boot camp, the agoge, started when boys were just 7 years old. Taken from their families, they entered a world where survival depended on older warrior mentors. The Spartan loyalty test. In this brutal system, forming an unbreakable bond with your mentor wasn't just encouraged, it was mandatory military strategy. Shield Spartans believed these hyper-intense connections, demanding total emotional devotion to your mentor, created the fearless, cohesive units that terrified their enemies. Refusing? That wasn't an option. It meant being cast out, a death sentence in Sparta's rigid world. The shocking historical detail. The ancient historian Plutarch mentions Spartan soldiers sharing battle helmets with their young comrades, a powerful symbol of unity. But this extreme bonding culture demanded absolute submission to your mentor's authority, blurring lines in ways we'd find unacceptable today. Imagine modern boot camp where your drill sergeant demanded you share everything, your fears, your loyalty, your very identity. That was Sparta's reality for young recruits. What was the cost to these boys? Ancient sources obsess over Spartan military glory, but were strangely silent about the human toll. That silence speaks volumes. We'll explore the brutal trade-off next. Legendary warriors. At what price? Sparta's brutal sorting hat. Power, not potential. Forget fair tryouts. Spartan mentorship was a harsh selection game rigged for control. Direct-hit older warriors handpicked youths based on looks, athletic skill, or family ties, not character or choice. If you weren't chosen, career over. Total social exile. Pensive face if you were picked. You entered a bond with zero power. Your mentor controlled your food, safety, training, everything. Imagine your soccer coach also deciding if you eat dinner or get bullied, with no option to quit the team. That's the terrifying reality these boys faced. The training trap. Boys were deliberately kept hungry and exposed to harsh conditions. Why? To make them desperately dependent on their mentors for basic survival needs. This wasn't toughness training, it was psychological control. Vulnerability was weaponized. True strength comes from dignity, not manipulation. Flex biceps. Curious Olympic contrast. While Sparta starved its youth, Athens offered free meals to Olympic athletes. Yet both cities normalized controlling mentorship systems. How could cultures value physical excellence while enabling such exploitation? That's the ancient world's dark contradiction. Balance scale. The silent half. Women in a man's world. While elite men navigated complex power games, Greek women faced a rigid system of their own. Forget romantic weddings. Marriage was a business deal. Fathers arranged unions, often trading teenage daughters, as young as 12 to 13, to men twice their age. Ring love? Consent? Not part of the contract. A woman's worth was tied to inheritance and childbearing. Her voice legally silenced. Sparta's twisted equality. Even here, where women owned land and trained physically, they were still political property. The historian Plutarch noted Spartan girls competed in sports, only to become stronger mothers of warriors. Their bodies served the state's military machine, not their own dreams. The Parthenon paradox. Athens built breathtaking temples to goddesses like Athena, while real Athenian women needed male guardians to leave home. How could a society worship female wisdom, yet deny basic rights to its own women? That hypocrisy echoes through history. Classical building. Why did these brilliant civilizations fail half their people? We confront that hard truth next. The invisible citizen, when wives were legal ghosts. Imagine needing permission to buy bread, or being legally erased if your husband died. That was reality for Athenian wives. Scroll Greek law didn't just sideline women, it erased their independence. A wife couldn't own land, sign contracts, or even defend herself in court. Her identity? Property of husband's name. Abuse wasn't a crime. It was seen as a man's duty to discipline his household. This wasn't just unfair, it was state-sanctioned invisibility. The house prison. Respectable women lived in near-total lockdown. No markets, no theater, no festivals, just endless domestic walls. Their purpose? Produce heirs and manage slaves. Even Sparta's famously tough women faced this. Plutarch mentions they could own land, but still couldn't vote or speak in assemblies. Freedom had rigid limits. The ultimate double standard. Power without accountability. Now brace yourself for ancient hypocrisy on steroids. While wives were jailed in their homes, husbands openly kept male companions, relationships with enslaved women, and visited brothels. And society applauded it as manly vigor. Collision, but if a wife even looked at another man, death or exile, jealousy, she'd be branded hysterical, a threat to order. The message was brutal. His pleasure was a right. Her survival was a privilege. The silent witness. Look at Greek pottery. Men feast at symposia with entertainers, while women's quarters are empty shadows. Art celebrated male freedom and female silence. Amphora. Curious case of Aspasia. One woman did break the mold. Pericles' partner, Aspasia. She debated philosophers and influenced politics, but Athenians mocked her as a prostitute. Why? Because any visible woman outside the home was instantly slandered. Her story proves how fiercely the system punished exceptions. Sparkles. How could the inventors of logic build such an illogical system? We unravel Greece's greatest contradiction next. The temple trap. When faith became exploitation. Imagine giving your life to serve a goddess, only to become a human ATM for greedy priests. Money with wings, that was the dark reality at places like Corinth's Temple of Aphrodite. Families donated daughters as sacred servants. But this wasn't spiritual devotion. It was economic slavery wrapped in religious robes. These women weren't priestesses, they were revenue streams. Temples grew fat on their suffering, funding lavish buildings while the women lived as trapped property. The industrial machine. Archaeologists found chilling proof. Massive temple complexes with barracks-like dorms for hundreds of women, luxury baths for patrons, and ticket booths tracking offerings. This wasn't piety. It was a fortune-making factory built on desperation. Poor families saw no choice. Rich families bought holy points with their daughters' freedom. Pensive face. The ultimate betrayal. Selling souls. Worst of all, these girls were brainwashed to believe their pain was sacred. Told they were chosen by the gods. Their exploitation was rebranded as divine duty. Think modern cult tactics. isolation, fake purpose, broken self-worth. Many died believing their abuse was a blessing. That's not religion. That's evil masquerading as enlightenment. Sun Raitero skull and crossbones. The Olympic contrast. While Corinth exploited women, Olympia banned all women from its games, even as spectators. Yet both claimed divine approval. How could holiness justify such opposite cruelties? That's ancient hypocrisy in action. Balance scale. A silent revolt. Historians note scattered clues of resistance. Anonymous poems cursing temple priests, runaway lists carved on pottery shards. These whisper, not all believe the lie. Raised fist. The dark arts of control, when love was weaponized. Think ancient dating was poetry and flowers? Think darker. Scroll archaeologists have dug up thousands of cursed lead tablets in Greece, and they reveal a terrifying truth. Some men treated desire as conquest, using what they called love magic to override free will. This wasn't romance. It was psychological warfare disguised as tradition. The chilling evidence. These tablets, like the ones found in Athens' wells, contain brutal commands. Make her burn with obsession. Force her to abandon her family. Fill her with madness until she obeys. The targets? Specific named women. The goal? Total control. This was the ultimate corruption of intimacy, treating people as puppets. The profit in poison. Worst of all, this cruelty was a business. Sorcerers sold spell kits, cursed dolls, whispered chants, buried charms, promising to break up marriages, white heavy checkmark. Create fake destiny, white heavy checkmark. Destroy a woman's peace of mind, white heavy checkmark. All marketed as casually as ordering takeout. Bento box. The philosopher's silence. Here's the shocker. While Plato debated justice, his own city tolerated this spiritual poisoning. No law stopped it. Why? Because society saw women's autonomy as irrelevant. Their bodies were battlefields to claim. Contrast with Cleobulina. Meet a rare rebel. This 6th century BC poetess wrote riddles challenging Greek norms. I saw a man stealing with fire, and the victim thanked him. Answer, a fisherman cooking his catch. Her wit proved women could think, making their silencing even crueler. Lightbulb. Final truth. Real love respects free will. Real power protects the vulnerable. What does it say when history's enlightened society failed this basic test? Broken heart. The silent complicity when society looked away. History's darkest crimes thrive in silence. Greece's intellectuals debated justice, yet stayed eerily quiet about the cruel love magic targeting women. Why? Because those spells mirrored a brutal truth. For some, no was just an obstacle to overcome. Whether through money, myths, or manipulation, consent was negotiable. That tolerance was Greece's true moral failing. Balance scale. Mythology's dangerous mirror. Gods behaving badly. Even Greek myths hid disturbing lessons. Tales of gods transforming into animals to pursue humans weren't just fantasy. They twisted power into predation. Take Zeus becoming a bull to approach Europa. Framed as divine romance, it modeled imbalance, not love. These stories whispered, if gods cross boundaries, why can't man? The scholar's betrayal. Philosophers dissected these myths with cold logic, debating if such acts violated nature rather than condemning their cruelty. Medical texts dryly noted injuries from unnatural encounters. This academic detachment exposed a chilling truth. When brilliance lacks compassion, it becomes complicity. Crossmark. Contrast with Antigone. While myths normalized abuse, stories like Antigone rebelled. Her defiance of unjust laws to bury her brother became a timeless cry. There are divine laws beyond human decrees. Sparkles her moral courage shamed Greece's silent scholars. The unseen chains, when humans became inventory. For all its philosophy, Greece built fortunes on a brutal truth. Slaves weren't people, they were property. Legal documents list them alongside furniture and livestock. Wealthy households kept inventories categorizing humans by use, a chilling glimpse into systemic dehumanization. Scroll, this wasn't hidden cruelty. It was tax-funded, court-protected industry. The cycle of suffering. Enslaved people faced zero legal protection. Owners decided their fates without consequence. Even children born in bondage inherited their parents' chains, creating generations trapped in a profit-driven nightmare. Aristotle himself shockingly called slaves living tools, exposing philosophy's moral blind spot. Wrench, the silence of the law. Resistance meant torture or death. Courts dismissed slave testimonies. Their words literally had no legal weight. Imagine reporting abuse only to be told, "Your pain doesn't count in this courtroom." That was Greece's justice. Contrast with Sparta's helot revolts. While Athenians ignored suffering,